It's DSP's Top 10 Worst Gaming Moments of 2010. Number 7, a tie between Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2 and Epic Mickey as the most disappointing games of 2010. Great expectations can be a double-edged sword. If your game ends up being very good, it can end up getting critical acclaim. But a well-anticipated game that falls short of expectations can really dampen the mood. And 2 games out of all the ones I played this year really fell far short of what was really being expected. The first was Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. Now, in its defense, The Force Unleashed 1, although it was a decently lengthed campaign, did have its share of bugs. A lot of difficulties with some of the boss battles and things like that. Some bugs with clipping and falling through ground and things that could be pretty annoying during a gameplay experience. These were not present in The Force Unleashed 2. However, the problem with The Force Unleashed 2 is that it's extremely short, extremely boring, adds absolutely nothing to the gameplay mechanics or the story of The Force Unleashed 1, but it's still priced at a retail purchase. So, why would I pay $60 for a game that I could beat in a 4-hour sitting and really isn't even worth a weekend rental? It was really, really disappointing, considering that after the revolutionary Force Unleashed 1, which was really the first style of game where you could have a Jedi or a Sith who could use their Force powers freely, and it had a few bugs, but it was still a pleasurable experience. This game really felt like they just dialed it in, extremely short, very few interesting boss battles, basically an anticlimactic ending, even though there are 2 different endings to the game. Both are pretty unsatisfying, and most people who bought this game were very disappointed to spend $60. But even for all its faults, The Force Unleashed 2 at least was pretty much what you were expecting. A game where you could run around using your Force powers, and if that's what you wanted, then you probably liked the game. However, Epic Mickey, on the flip side, really fell short of the bar of greatness. This was a game extremely highly anticipated, very hyped by the gaming media, seemed like it was going to be a very original concept. Here's a game, a free-form platformer, where you are Mickey Mouse, and it's the first pretty much hardcore game made for the core gamer that stars a Disney character such as this, besides maybe Kingdom Hearts. And the whole gimmick is that you have paint and paint thinner, and you can either create or destroy. The problem is, after about an hour and a half of gameplay, you realize that that's pretty much the only interesting thing in this entire game, and you begin to get extremely bored. Some buggy gameplay, some difficult fights because Mickey has such limited abilities and no dodge ability, really odd graphic design choices, including having more than half the game in dark areas where you really can barely even see where you're going or what you're trying to do, really make this game a failure. An epic failure. In fact, I called it epic shitty during my hateful review of it, simply because it was just so disappointing to me. A game that had so much potential, bringing all these classic cartoon characters together, being able to put it into a creative package, having a great story, but then basically handing the game over to game developers who obviously haven't played video games since the 90s, because the same bugs and problems are present in this game. A camera that, I swear to God, is the same camera they employed in Super Mario 64, because you can never see anything. Anytime you fall into a corner, it's impossible to know what's going on. A control scheme that just doesn't work, having to constantly point and aim on your screen with the Wiimote, which actually makes your arm get tired. Enemies that are too difficult, platforming that's extremely difficult because the camera is not good, and the fact that the game is 15 hours long and far too difficult for kids. This game really doesn't know what it wants to be. If it wants to be a core game, then it needs to find a way to be entertaining, or if it's not, if they're trying to say this game was catered to kids, then it should have been much shorter than the 15-hour length, and it should have been much easier than the very hard difficulty level of the platforming. So, Epic Mickey, basically an epic failure, an interesting experiment, but next time you have a really good idea, you should hand it over to a development team that knows what they're doing and basically doesn't ignore the past 10 years of gaming development when it came to 3D platformers. Coming up next, can one boss battle actually ruin a game? Well, for most gaming media and for myself, the answer is yes. Check it out.